Good to go, chief.
Okay. Good evening. We'll call the meeting to order. Unfortunately, there's quite a few of the members that are unable to be here tonight for one reason or another, a lot of scheduling conflicts. So hopefully more people will be able to see it um, on YouTube, but we'll get started. So as always, one of the first things that we talk about, and feel free to ask questions and comment, is our staffing level. And unfortunately, I have some bad news on our staffing. So currently, right now, we stand at 6 police officer vacancies. So we have 6 vacancies, and we have 4 officers presently at the police academy. And are scheduled to graduate in May. One officer is graduating in May. 2 more around August, and then another sometime around the September time period. So although they're not, the department is 6 vacant, in the reality of it, we're really 10 right now, because those 4 that are at the academy aren't working the street. So when you think about it, if we're 52 sworn with 10 less officers, we're almost 20% down in our workforce. So, I mean, it's pretty serious when you consider the fact 20%. I mean, just think of your own industries that you work in, and if somebody came to you and said, hey, we're gonna cut 20% of your workforce, how would that affect your operations? And that's kind of where we're at now. We have a number of vacancies in the detective division, supervisor positions that are currently vacant that have not been filled. So there's a huge void in the department. And I think the best way to characterize it is we're really right now in survival mode. We just, we scratched together a patrol division. Our patrol is at minimum. And then again, there's a number of vacancies in the bureau and in the supervisory position. So it's challenging. We're no different than some of the other departments. But, we're doing the best we can. With 6 vacancies, we have only 1 person that is in background right now. So, if that position, or if that candidate makes it through the background process, then that would leave us at 5. But, there's always people leaving. During the course of a month, we lost 3 officers. At one point, we were 3 down, and thought we were making headway, and then, a month later, we lost 3 more. So,
Were those normal retirements or were those
one was
others?
separated from service, and then 2 are retiring. Jamie D. Simone.
She went to the high school.
Yeah, she retired.
Okay,
and-
she was retirement. Then.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then one of the detectives is retired.
Did you say Jamie retired?
Yes, yeah, she's
Wow.
She's
What a
at the high
loss.
school now.
she's at the high school as a security officer
Oh.
now. Yeah, so we
Yeah,
lost
still.
her, but the town didn't lose her.
Yeah,
But,
right.
we
So-
lost, a very valuable position.
When you say we're down 10, does that not include the other ones that you said we were missing, like the detectives?
No. So we're down, we have 6 vacancies.
Okay.
And we have 4 officers that are in the academy, but
Right.
they're not here, so we're not getting
Okay.
anything in return. So once they get out of the academy,
Mhm.
they have another 16 weeks of field training.
Right.
So, if you look at, the situation, really those 4 officers are not gonna be on the road until
Mhm.
late summer, early fall.
Early fall, right? 1 August,
So-
1 September.
And I'll get into the calls for service. So, calls for service are up, arrests are up.
How far do you
Act-
reach out for other people to fill the positions? How far do you reach out?
What do you mean, trying to recruit?
Yeah, right.
We do the best we can. We've had billboards,
Mhm.
go to college fairs. We're at the high school.
Did you just
last
go to
week.
the
Oh, just
community?
recently?
Yeah, we were
Yeah.
there, but it's just, I think one of the things that you need to do, and I'm presently working on somebody right now who's a great kid. He just finished college with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. So I think it's almost like you have to have that one-on-one conversation with people, you know, to try to get them to join a department as opposed to, you know, some of the traditional methods. I think that one-on-one contact, you know, showing interest that, you know, that person would be a valuable member of the department works a lot better than, you know, going to a job fair or so. I mean, it's just the way to, there's just nobody interested in joining a profession, you know, it's,
Yeah, tough.
you know, so we do the best we can, but you know, if things continue the way they're continuing, then, you know, we're gonna have to make some tough decisions on how we operate.
And our population's going up.
Well, that's the other thing too, is, you know, there's more development,
Right,
you know, there's gonna be more calls for service with less people.
right.
So, you know, we're struggling, but I try to be optimistic. You know, maybe things will turn around. But, you know, it's just, you take, you know, one step forward, two step back, you know, and then you take another step forward, two more steps back. So at some point, something's gonna give, but this is nothing like I've ever seen before.
Yeah.
You know, and again, it's not just us. I just saw something on TV this evening about Waterbury. They're supposed to be at 300 and they're down 53.
Move.
So,
Wow.
you know, everybody's having a difficult time.
Well, I mean, I know I sent you the bill. We had a little brief conversation on that. Clearly, there's gotta be a statewide, you know, lack if they're trying
Yeah.
to, pass a bill to put some incentive in this thing.
Yeah, I just think that the damage is done.
Yeah.
It's just, I think.
Irreparable.
Yeah, it's just nobody has the interest in the profession. It's a great profession. It's been good to me. You know, I came into it because I wanted to serve the town.
Mhm.
You know, I always, you know, put the town first, myself second. And, you know, there's not a lot of people out there that are willing to do that. And, you know, unfortunately, you know, with everything that's been said and done, it's just, you know, people don't want to join the profession. And I think when you look at, it's not just us, I think municipal employment in general, you know, education,
Mhm.
you know, finding teachers, support staff,
Oh.
OT, PT, speech and language,
Right.
paraprofessionals. Everybody's struggling, so nobody wants to get into that, you know, municipal work, and it's tough. It's, you know, we're just talking about social media.
Mhm.
You know, do you really want to get beat up on social media when you can go work in the private sector and not have to deal with that? So I think, you know, there's only so much people want to deal with, you know, being talked about on Facebook or social media, especially people misrepresenting the facts without getting the real story. You know, people just don't want to deal with that. You know, some people aren't as thick-skinned, and it just, you know, it just.
So what's the answer?
What's the answer? I think we gotta like reevaluate things, reevaluate what's important.
And everybody has to be on board with it. too. It
Correct.
can't just be us.
Correct. And it, you know, it goes back to, you know, policing the community
Right.
is a community effort. It's not just us.
Right.
It has to be the community, and people need to work together instead of being divisive. It's funny. I'm reading a real good book by Bill Bratton, who was the NYPD commissioner. It's called Profession, and you read it, and his one thing that he said that stood out to me: you can't implement community policing when people don't want to be a part of the community. And really, that he's right.
Mhm.
How do you implement community policing when people don't want to be part of the community? And if you look at, I mean, you lived in town. Think about years ago, the volunteerism,
Oh, yeah. Well,
you know, the
look at-
civic
look at
groups.
this.
Yeah,
You just said we have to search to find people
Yeah.
for this,
you know, civic groups,
once a quarter.
participation. Yeah, I mean, the Lions Club, Kiwanis, Rotary.
yeah.
It's not even what it once was, you know, coaching, you know, even, you know, serving your community in, as an elected official, boards or commission, they're just not there. So, you know, if people don't feel as though they're part of the community, how do you implement community policing? It's difficult. So it's a, you know, for us, crime is going up. It's no different than a lot of other places. And the only way, it can't just be with the police department. Everybody has to contribute. Everybody has to do their part. And being supportive and working together is the way to make things better. And you just got to get people to jump on board, and it's hard.
I think knowing your neighborhood too
Yeah.
is really important.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. We used to get, back in the day, and when I was a lieutenant here, we would periodically get requests to shut streets down
Uh-huh.
for the
Block parties and
neighborhood,
stuff.
so they could have a
We
neighborhood.
did it for a little bit.
Yeah, so they
Yeah.
could have a neighborhood picnic.
Yeah.
You know, could they cone off the road so, you know, they could do things. And I don't remember the last time. I don't think we do that.
Everyone's isolated.
Yeah. And, you know, but back in the day, neighborhoods would basically ask for, you know, permission and cones and barricades to shut a street down. You know, it's a residential area, you're not getting a lot of traffic. So all the neighbors could get together and have a big picnic. So, yeah, you don't see that anymore, so. you know, We'll see, but that's, in my mind, that's one of the ways to work through this. And it has to happen, because if it doesn't happen, you know, some serious changes are gonna have to be made in how the communities are policed and what services are being provided. And, you know, one of the things that I say, and if we can't continue to operate like this, is you're gonna have to see some sort of
I was
consolidation.
gonna say, you can see a regionalization.
You'll see a Metro
Yeah,
Police, you'll
that's
see a
actually great,
Hartford
yeah.
Metro Police, or a Hartford County Police.
Yeah.
But I can, having done this job since 1986.
I was gonna say like 5 minutes ago, but I wouldn't.
I
Sure,
can-
yeah.
I can assure you, your service is here. If that happens, your service will be down here
But maybe
It
that's what
won't
it takes for
diminish.
people to react.
greatly. You are not gonna get the service that you're being provided now is not, it's not gonna be close. If it goes to that point, and what's gonna happen is, you know, you're not gonna have that community feel, because, you know, you may have somebody that's working, you know, in Hartford or over in East Hartford or Windsor, and, you know, the next month is over here in Newington. They're not
You
gonna
may know the
know,
guy
you're not
who
gonna
is,
have
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So
See the guy once every 6 weeks or
Yeah.
something like that.
yeah, and where are they gonna put the resources? They're gonna put the resources where the need is. So I can assure you that if that happens, you're not gonna see the same service that you're getting now. I can guarantee that. That's just the way it is. So. Let's see, calls for service. So just a few items here. You know, domestics, we're slightly behind where we were last year at this time. Drug investigations, last year at this time, we were at 6. Now we're at 18. Larcenies, this is probably the biggest jump, and a lot of it is the shoplifting. Last year at this time, we were at 128. Now we're at 217. So a significant jump in larcenies, and a lot of that is shopliftings.
Is there certain places that?
Well,
Good shot.
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're trying to do high visibility,
Yeah,
hotspot policing, and, you know, parking out in front of those businesses at different
Walmart.
periods. So it's, you know, it's Walmart, it's Target,
yeah,
it's Bob's Stores, it's Price Chopper, it's
Uh-huh.
Stop and Shop. So just being visible,
yeah.
trying to prevent that. So if you're out and about, you're probably gonna see some cruisers parked out in front of
I
the.
see him
With
usually,
all-
I go to
with all
Stop and
the
Shop, so I
lights
see
on.
him.
Yeah,
Actually, yeah, the lights are a lot brighter now.
yeah.
There's a lot more lights and
Yeah,
brighter
so-
lights.
I mean, that's enough to make
Yeah.
me look at my.
So they're
I don't think
parking
they care,
there
that's the
and
problem.
for their visibility as a deterrent.
Mhm.
So that's one of the things we're trying to do to try to
Yeah, good.
alleviate it. So larcenies from motor vehicles were down. We were at 76 last year at this time. Now we're at 50.
Do we have as many of the AT? Oh, I guess it's not the season, right? The
Well, it's
ATVs and that
starting now.
really, it's starting,
We've
yeah, I just
we've
realized
had a
that.
couple small groups, but
Yeah.
nothing really big.
I said it, as soon as I said it, I was like, no, that was more winter time anyway, we didn't really
Yeah.
have that stuff yet.
Yeah, so I mean, the warm, well, next week is supposed to get pretty warm.
Yeah,
so.
so it's gonna pick up again.
We haven't had any fatal accidents this year. Injury accidents were right on par with where we were last year. And property only, no injury accidents, we're down. We're at 246 last year. And now we're at 217. Stolen cars are up. We had 7 last year. At this time, we're up to 17. Traffic stops, 914. Compared to last year with 1,065. And then traffic stop attempt when we try to stop the car and they take off on us.
Uh-huh.
This year we've had 29. Last year at this time we had 26. So I could tell you arrests are up 33%. And I'll get into some more when we talk about traffic enforcement. We had the symposium.
Yeah, I
So
didn't
we can
get
talk
to
about-
watch it, so,
We'll
yeah.
talk a little bit about
Okay.
that.
How did you feel that went?
I thought it went good. I tried to explain the
Yeah.
challenges that we have. I thought DOT did a good job explaining, what they're trying to do in the way of, traffic calming, infrastructure,
Right.
grants. I thought they did a real good job.
Were people more specific and DOT was more general, or I only,
No,
okay.
I think DOT was pretty specific on what they were
Right.
doing. yeah.
Well, I didn't know if people came in and were more like concerned about, okay, Old Farm Drive and East Cedar is an issue or something like that, no?
I think,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, there were some questions, but I think people were there more to listen,
Good.
to see
Right.
what was going on. Like I said, I just did a quick overview. I mean, I could talk about it for an hour. I didn't want to
I'll watch it.
take over. And, but I thought, what they were, they say they were doing up at the Capitol. And then, what DOT was doing, I thought it was good.
I thought you did well too. I think that there needed to be somebody there in your position.
Right, just, the
Because the
challenges.
traffic affects everybody,
Right,
not
and
just
it's,
Newington, but.
and it's, when I say this,
Yeah.
I mean this, and I'll talk, the number one complaint I get from people in town is traffic. I just got one today through the mayor's office, and I'll talk about the email,
Right.
what my response was, so people understand, but yeah, the number one complaint is traffic. It's just, Newington's a parking lot. It really is.
It's gonna get
just-
worse.
Yeah, it's
With the
just.
things going up and the locations they're going up.
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
2 on Cedar Street
yeah,
and then the Turnpike.
yeah, it's,
I mean,
That's when I
we're
said that.
talking
would be-
hundreds in
yeah.
each development.
Yeah.
And
It's funny because after all the businesses are built, and it's more so the apartment complexes.
yeah,
Hmm.
The previous town manager wanted to, an idea of the impact it was gonna have on the PD. So, I came up with calls for service to increase, the percentages. So I wanna see if,
If you hit
after
the
a
mark.
year's time,
yeah.
after the bill, if I was accurate or not. So I'm interested to see how
Yeah.
accurate I was with my numbers. I tried to do some comparisons with other town businesses and other apartment complexes of a similar nature to try to get a grasp on, how it's going to affect the PD. And, I could talk about, the staffing and the budget as well. But, you know, there's more stressors now than ever before. The troops on the street are basically operating at minimum staffing.
Hmm.
And it's, with all the work, all the pressures and the challenges, they're getting burned. They're getting burned. There's no other way to describe it. It's just, it's just,
What's the starting salary?
recruit, I believe, is 71 as a recruit, and then after you graduate, you bump up.
Really?
I think top patrolman now is like, Derek, you gotta help me, 92, 93?
I want to say it's about 94,
94.
or so.
Yeah. So, I mean, but you know what? You can't throw money at a problem.
No, I'm just
You know,
wondering what
you-
it
you
is,
can- You can throw, you can throw a lot of money and you may lure some people, but.
Well, they were doing that, I remember seeing on the billboards, I think it was like $5,000 bonus, signing bonus. And
Yeah,
referrals, like if you got some, or if
yeah.
he got someone, you get $1,000.
The bottom line is this.
And look like people
Yeah.
stopped doing that,
Yeah.
I don't, maybe it just wasn't working like you're saying.
Well, I think, it's in totality. I think you gotta have a contract that separates yourself from the rest. And that's the only way you're gonna get people. I mean, it's in totality. It's the salary, it's the pension, it's the benefits. And if, my son-in-law's oldest boy he's graduating in May, but he's gonna go on to get his master's. So within a couple of years, he's gonna work. And basically my advice to him was, you find the best police department with the best contract, salary, benefits, pension,
The whole package,
and
yeah.
then you go there. You're in the driver's seat. So, if we want to attract good people, is you got to separate yourself from everybody else to bring those folks to your PD, and the only way to do that is have the best. And I can tell you from studies, there's two things that candidates look for. They look for the reputation of the agency, and then the pay and benefits. And that's the deciding factor. So,
Is it a double-edged sword? Is us being down so many a deterrent to work here? Like, do people look at it and say, I'm gonna have to work a gazillion hours,
sure. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you can't hire people because
if
you don't have enough people to begin with, and,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
okay. So I
And-
kind of figured,
And I can tell you, we've lost some people who have left and gone to a police department that has a 20-year retirement
really,
with
20.
with a buyback. So you go to a police department that, offers you a 20-year retirement, and you can buy back your time. So say you did 3 years, so you go there, you start out with a 20-year retirement, and you're able to buy back 3 years of where you worked previously. Pretty good pension.
Yeah, you're good.
And, we're at 25 with an age. So I think we need to have some discussions. It's something that we have to consider. All right. So department activities, not all is bleak. So a couple things. My friends at Newington Rotary are going to sponsor the Youth Police Academy. So we're going to do that again. We did it before COVID, and then we had to stop
Yeah.
it because of COVID. So that's going to be end of June. So that will be for kids from age 13 to 18. So that'll be a week long. So that was a lot of fun, and that was well attended the last time we did it. So I would expect that will be well attended again, and then we're going to do an abbreviated Citizens Police Academy.
I just put that down.
Yeah.
To ask the question
Yeah.
about that.
So we're going to do
That's
that.
funny.
We're going to do that as well. So
Does that include like the ride? Did you guys do a ride
we
along
stopped
at
doing a
one point
ride
in
along
time?
because of the
I missed that too.
NCIC rules.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because of
For
yeah. So
certification?
you could see the screen and you're not, the
Yeah,
public
yeah.
can't see
I had
the
to do-
MDT screen.
Yeah.
and So.
That's a bummer.
so-
I know all the people like that. That's
Yeah.
why.
So we're gonna be offering that, so. Yeah, spread the word. I know the flyers have gone out,
Okay.
to the kids. So that will be the end of June. Alright. So, let's see, the Center for, did anybody go to the forum for the Center for Policing Equity that they had here at Town Hall?
No,
Okay.
I couldn't.
Did anybody see the report? They had it on a webinar. I think there was like 40 people or
Yeah.
40 people that were, that I saw that were in attendance. So just a couple findings that they came up with. We've talked about this previously, when they came in and collected all our data. And we've been basically in partnership with them since 2017. So some of the things, some of the findings that they came up with, they looked at use of force, traffic stops. Although traffic stops, they looked at traffic stop outcomes, not traffic stops. Because one of the things they said was they were unable to come up with a realistic benchmark for the amount of traffic that comes in town.
Mm.
So in other words,
Oh, okay.
there's too many variables that influence traffic that comes through town. You know, when you think about it, Newington's what? 30,500.
Yeah.
You got 28,000 cars out here, 40,000 cars on the Berlin Turnpike. Just those two streets alone is 68,000.
Yeah.
It's more than double the population.
Mhm.
And then when you look at the amount of stops that we make, and you know, out of all the stops, only 20% of the stops that we make are Newington residents. 80% are people that don't live in town. So you know, it was tough for them. So what they looked at was the outcomes. You know, what happened after the stop had occurred. You know, was the car searched? What type of enforcement? So what they found was, you know, African Americans made up 5.2% of the population in Newington, but represented 17% of all use of force incidents during the time period analyzed. And that was over a 6-year period. So that was from 2013 to 2019. Latino people made up 9.5% of the population. So I found that kind of interesting because the Board of Ed,
I was just
the
gonna.
Board of Ed
We
is
talked about that.
25% of the student population. And
We
Newington
talked about
schools
that.
is 25%.
Because you said you went
Yeah.
and like,
Yeah, so it's interesting.
yeah.
So they made up 9.5 of the population, but 25% of all use of force incidents recorded. So that kind of matches what's, you know, what they're showing for the population in the school district. Two most common types of force used were holds and takedowns. So if you grab onto somebody, that's a use of force. If you say you do a
They
leg
grab
up,
onto you first. I mean,
well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the beauty of the
Yeah.
body cams now
yeah,
is everything's
Yeah.
recorded.
Yeah.
right.
So we don't use force a lot, and I'll get into that. So the amount of times that we do, it's all for the most part captured on the body cam.
Mhm.
So African Americans made up 18% of all drivers stopped during the report period. One stop, 3.2 times as likely to be searched, 2.3 times as likely to be arrested compared to white drivers. Latino, 22% of all drivers stopped during the reported period. One stop, they were 3.1 times as likely to be searched and 2.1 times as likely to be arrested compared to white drivers. So those were their findings. So they're granted, I mean, this is back 2019, so it's almost
Oh, it
4
was.
yeah. That's how long we've been
Well,
working with them. So we're continuing continuing to provide them the data. So, but just to give you, I think you gotta be careful with it sometimes. So use of force. So every year we generate a summary of our use of force incidents. So last year in 2022. Now, mind you, we have to report all our use of force to the state of Connecticut.
Mhm.
So they compile the data and then they generate a report. So there's specific criteria for when officers use force that we have to complete a report and forward it to them. So last year in 2022, we only had 10 incidents where officers used force. And that had to be reported to the state. And the types of incidents were traffic stop 2 times, burglary in progress 2 times, emotionally disturbed person 2 times, when involved a breach of peace, a fight in progress, a larceny in progress, complaint of shots fired in a stolen motor vehicle. So every officer that responds to that incident, so one of them was pointing of a firearm was done 12 times. Now there wasn't 12 incidents, so there could have been one incident with 4 officers, and each one pointed their gun. That has that's
It's reported
reportable.
as 12.
So each
Yeah, so
officer
each
has to
incident,
report
yeah.
that. So 12 times, elbow, knee, foot strike 2 times, hand or fist strike 1 time. Demographics of the recipients of the force that was used. White male 5 times, Hispanic male 2 times, Hispanic female 0, African American female 0, African American male 0. So you compare that to, so I would, because now they're CPE is looking at incidents 2020, 2021 and 2022, so that will all be a part of that.
One thing that I came away with when you talked about people getting tickets and
Yeah.
being and you asked for a breakdown and that you still don't have it yet?
Oh, yeah, so what I did before so before that symposium, I called the Centralized Infractions Bureau to get a breakdown of how many tickets we issued in Newington, how many were paid, how many were not lead, and how many went to court for prosecution, and they never got back to me.
And you never, right.
Excuse me, so they never got back to me, so. So when we look at numbers too, you know, shoplifting arrests, 2019 to 2022, you know, we made a total of 612 arrests for shoplifting. You know, 73% were white, 21% were African American, 33% were Latino. So, you know, so I think you got to be cautious. So even though, you know, our census information shows,
Mhm.
you know, what CPE is using for a benchmark, this well exceeds that. But I can tell you that most of the people that we arrest for shoplifting don't even live in Newington.
Right.
Does it take into account, and I don't know if it even matters, repeat offenders?
No.
No, it doesn't take that into account.
What
So
we do we have rearrests through PRON, which is paper rearrest warrant network, and basically those are people that don't show up in court or violate probation. So those would give you an indication of how many people are being rearrested
Mhm.
who are out on bond and have not shown up for court. I know the other day I saw one where there was a guy that was the subject of 2 of those arrests. And one of the charges was for assault second, which is pretty serious felony. So he was out on bond, never showed up for court, and they issued a new warrant for him for failure to appear and made the arrest.
Yeah, I just didn't know if like, from these, say male Latino it was 5, could
Yeah.
have been a guy twice or 3 times,
It
same guy.
it certainly could
It
be.
certainly could be.
Yeah,
that's what you're
because,
saying.
but usually what happens when they make an arrest, the business wants some trespass from the property. So if they come back, they'd be arrested for trespassing. So typically you don't see a lot of, they may be doing shopliftings in other
Somewhere else.
jurisdictions, but not
Yeah.
necessarily. in
Oh,
Newington.
I didn't even think about other places.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
so
just thinking New England.
Typically, if they're shoplifting here, they're shoplifting somewhere else.
Yeah.
Accident data, we started collecting driver demographics on accidents. Just people to try to get a better benchmark for the traffic stops. And, white drivers involved in accidents, 80%, African American, 14.3%, and Hispanic, 18.1%. So again, that far exceeds the census data,
Right.
what they're establishing. So I think you just gotta be cautious,
Mhm.
and you gotta look at things in totality, not just, use one format. So there's a lot of variables that come into play, especially in Newington, with all the businesses, the traffic, and where we're located between Hartford and New Britain. There's a lot of factors that come into play that have to be considered. So let's see, the U.S. Department of Justice grant for de-escalation training. So we are one of 45 police departments throughout the country to get awarded this grant.
Mhm.
And we applied. I didn't think we were going to get it because it was so limited, but we ended up getting it. So it's a $68,000 grant. And basically what the money's going to be used, I'm going to be purchasing a simulator. So it's kind of like a theater where you have over 800 different scenarios that the trainers can manipulate. Kind of like a shoot, don't shoot, but there's de-escalation built in it as well. So we're purchasing that. And what's good about it, it's not like a video game. That the actual weapons that are used in the system actually have a recoil. So you feel it, so that, escalates the stress. The whole point is trying to make it as realistic as possible. So training's a mindset. So, it's just that repetitive, training, be involved in situations. So in the real world, if you are faced with a situation, hopefully you've seen it before, you're not going to overreact. You're going to rely on your training and you're going to be able to handle the situation. So that's the whole point of scenario-based training. It's kind of like, playing sports where you do game situations, where you have like a mock game, you're put into game situations because you're going to be faced with that, during a game. So, you build that repetition, that confidence that you can do it. So during a real game, when it happens, you've already saw it, you've already done it, you have the confidence level to get through it. So that's the whole point of scenario-based training and why I'm purchasing that system. The other part of it is all the officers will be trained in de-escalation. They get some of that training now, but this will be more in depth. And then the third part of it will be all the supervisors will be trained in use of force analysis.
Hmm.
So, there's 3 parts to this grant. It's the simulator, the de-escalation training, and then the follow-up by the supervisors who have to review and approve the use of force to make sure that, the use of force was within the law and within policy. So it's a good grant. So we're working on that right now. Any questions on that?
Do you have somebody that looks for grants like
Yeah,
that?
the town has somebody, hired
Oh.
somebody.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so they hired someone who actually, found the grant, worked on the grant, with me and we ended up getting it.
Good.
So it was very worthwhile. Um, so it worked out good. Our operating budget,
Mm.
so that's with the town council. I can tell you in a nutshell. Pretty much everything stayed the same. The only difference is I asked for another police officer because of the development. And as we stand right now, they've approved it, so it still has to go, make its way through the council, but, at the town manager's level, they approved it, he approved it. It's gone before the council. I haven't heard anything negative about it. So, right now we're at 52, and if we get that position, we'll be at 53. Just another position we have to fill.
Yeah,
But
right.
I'm trying
But
to
you're
be-
hopeful, I get it, yeah.
But
You want to fill them up.
the
Yep,
department is gonna have to grow because of the development.
you're adding,
Every
Almost
time I ride by
1,000.
all the apartments that are going in down by
Yeah,
Dunkin' Donut, I'm thinking, how are they gonna get in and out?
yeah, so
yeah.
it just has to grow. Traffic enforcement, so where is that? We talked a little bit about it, but I got an email today through the mayor. A gentleman sent an email to the mayor and was upset over the lack of traffic enforcement in Newington. And my response was, it's largely due to our staffing.
Mhm.
Um, So, let's see. So basically, he doesn't think that the traffic enforcement is up to what it once was, and is questioning why things aren't being done. So, my response was, our officers have less time to enforce traffic offenses due to significant increases in calls for service and crime. I can assure you that it is not for a lack of effort.
Mhm.
And just to give you an idea, our calls for service are up, excuse me, 17%. Our arrests are up 35%. Larcenies up 69%. While our staffing is down 20%.
Yeah.
So there's the reason. It's,
You're spread thin already.
yeah, we're spread thin. We're spread thin. More and more is being asked of the officers. More time is being spent on calls for service, arrest, investigations. Their time is just being limited.
What were his concerns, like speeding or
Yeah,
red
yeah,
lights, stuff like that, or
reckless driving,
reckless
reckless
driving?
driving.
Stuff like that?
And we're focusing more on that. I had put something out to focus more on speeding, red lights, aggressive driving, and DUIs. When you feel a patrol force, what you try to do is you try to break it up in thirds. So a third of the time, that's the time, the officers are taking their calls. So a third of their day is spent on, responding to your calls for service. The other third is spent on doing your investigations, writing your reports, court time or whatever. And then the last third is spent discretionary. That's you to go out, do traffic enforcement, go to those retail areas and show the colors to prevent larcenies and, be seen going to the neighborhoods. But the problem is that third is shrunk. So the calls for service has greatly taken over, followed by for every call, you got to do a report. So the discretionary time for proactive policing it shrunk. There's not a lot of time there anymore. So there's two ways to handle it. Put more officers on the street, so more people pick up that workload to give people more time to be able to do that proactive policing and traffic enforcement. Or if you can't, then you have to limit the calls that the officers are being sent on and being tied up on. So it's either one or the other.
What about, you think this will lead to things like red light cameras and
Um,
speed detection or, automated type of stuff?
It could. I know there's a lot of
I know there's-
resistance.
I
That
know-
came up at the meeting the other
Did
night.
it?
There's some resistance.
Oh, there's resistance to it. I've read a lot about it, I've read a lot about the companies that put them in.
Well,
I'm not particularly fond of it either,
Right.
but, does the lack of personnel lead us in that direction?
It could. I mean, it could. I mean, it all depends on, you can't, it's not, it's gotta be about traffic safety,
Mhm.
not generating revenue.
Mhm.
And, just listening to some of the things that were being said about what it would cost if you went through a red light camera or speeding, the fine from the camera is less than what you would get if an officer gave you a ticket.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Hmm.
and again, we don't get any money. We
Right.
get we
Right.
get very, so our officers give a ticket out, we get very little in return. Most of the money goes to the state.
Mhm.
Only a fraction of it comes to Newington.
Didn't some guy talk about the money goes to the company that was,
Right,
that makes the red light?
right, and that's not what you want.
No,
I mean, you, if you're gonna do it, you gotta do it in a way where, you know, where's that revenue going
Right.
and what's it gonna be used
Yeah, there's
for?
been, part of the bigger argument is, from what I've read, is the companies putting it in,
yeah.
Mhm. You know,
more than anything.
Who was that guy in the back that mentioned that? I can't think of his name. That was.
yeah, I don't remember what his name was, but I mean, he brought up some good points.
He did,
He
he
brought up
did.
some good points.
And right after I left there, I had come down by a Walgreens.
Yeah,
And there was a guy behind me and I was gonna make a left-hand turn and he, just before the light had switched,
yeah,
I got the beep.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
did something that's not very ladylike, but I gave him my finger and, oh God, I could have been hit.
Right, you gotta be
gotta start-
careful. If you're the
oh,
first
it was
car in
terrible.
line at a red
Mhm.
light
Yeah,
and it turns to green,
Look every
Yeah.
way possible.
you gotta look at it as a stop sign.
yeah,
You look
exactly.
both ways,
And
before you
1001,
go.
1002.
right, and if you're crossing the Bruin Turnpike, same thing.
Mm,
You look at the southbound or northbound lane first,
Mhm.
go, and as you get to the other northbound or southbound lanes, you look again.
right,
You just gotta make sure.
yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, could it, could it help? It could. If they do it, it has to be structured in a way where the public buys into it.
Right.
And the revenue that's being generated doesn't go to the company as a moneymaker.
Right.
It goes to the state, for traffic
Law enforcement type stuff,
purposes,
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Whether it's, infrastructure, safety, whatever. So, I kind of reserve judgment. I would like to see everything before I jump on board, the pros and the cons, and how things are going to be set up before I. All right. So that is it. Any questions on? I mean, we're a little behind what we were last year for traffic enforcement. I said at the meeting one year we generally make about 3,800 to 4,000 traffic stops a year. Take COVID out of it.
Mhm.
But I can remember when we had 2 officers assigned to a traffic unit, we had made 5,800. So we've gone to 5,800 traffic stops with 2 officers assigned. That's all they did to where we are now. So there's probably been a reduction over the course of time, about 1,800 stops. But that's all staffing related. You know, just if the staffing was there, we could still do that. So has there been less traffic enforcement? I would say absolutely, but it's all a result of the staffing
Yeah.
and the calls for service.
I thought it was also interesting how they talked about drivers being impaired by one thing or another.
Right.
And
Well, that's the big thing now is
Yeah.
marijuana. It's just,
yeah,
it's not like a breath test.
Yeah,
where-
how's that gauged?
Well, what you do is you establish your probable cause. So if you go to an accident and someone exhibits signs of impairment, whether alcohol is a little easier because you can smell it on their
Right.
breath, and then you do a test, and you bring them in for a post arrest because you have to arrest them. There's no pre
mhm,
arrest breath test in Connecticut. You can't do it. It's a post arrest. So you
Hmm.
establish your probable cause, you smell the alcohol, you do your sobriety test and the stagnus test. You generate that probable cause, you bring them in and you make them take a breath test, although they can refuse, but
mhm.
the breath test establishes, what their blood alcohol content is. Marijuana is a little different.
Yeah.
There's no test.
Although that same day that this happened, I was in Dollar Tree,
Yeah,
and at the counter,
yeah,
there's a test
yeah.
that you can buy, a home test for marijuana. It's
Yeah,
like,
but yeah,
I've
but,
never seen that
but
before.
it could show THC, but what is the standard for impairment?
Right,
Just because you have THC in your
Yeah.
Yeah.
system
What's the
doesn't
magic
mean
number?
you're impaired.
What's
Right.
the magic number? Yeah.
Right, and no one's able to produce that.
right.
So conversely, if you go to an accident and you pull somebody over
Mhm.
and you do field sobriety test and they show impairment, but you don't smell any alcohol, then it's probably drugs. So if you can establish your probable cause with this sobriety test, you make an arrest, you bring them to the police department, and you offer them, a urine test or a blood test, and then if there's a drug recognition expert available,
Yeah.
and there's only a certain amount of them throughout the state, you contact them if they're available, and they will come down and do a review. They'll put the subject through tests to determine if they impaired under drugs. But
Mhm.
again, that is a post-arrest screening, and that can only be done by a drug recognition expert. We have nobody in Newington that has that. And there are some throughout the state, but it's limited. It is very intensive training, like so many hours. You actually go to other states, fly out to other states for the training. It is intensive. So there's not a lot of them in the state. And again, that is a post-arrest screening. So the officer has to establish his or her probable cause out in the field. It's, back in the day, you tested somebody and you brought them to the station and they were obviously impaired and they blew into the breathalyzer and they blew zeros, but they couldn't walk a straight line and they had nystagmus. They were obviously impaired. You would change the test to a urine test and have it screened for drugs. So a little different, but
Have you experienced that with any of the officers?
having issues, not to my knowledge.
Hmm.
Most of the officers, they get that, DUI training,
Mm,
but this is all new now.
yeah,
So things are gonna come up. I think the easiest way to treat it is if the person if the person shows impairment and you don't have any.
there's also a definite smell.
Right, I mean, one of the
So-
complaints that the officers are seeing now is when they're working traffic details, on construction sites at intersections,
Mm.
cars pulling, they could smell it.
I can
coming out.
smell it.
They
What do you,
could
what do you
smell it
mean?
coming out of
What do
the
you mean?
car.
I can smell from the car driving in front
So
of me.
you know
I know.
you know
yeah.
they're driving, because they can
Everything
smell it.
is-
Mm,
So it's happening. So,
that's just a whole other can of worms there.
yeah, it's just another challenge
Yeah.
that, the officers are faced with and have to navigate their way through.
Is that specifically illegal to smoke while you're driving?
You're basically getting impaired.
Right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Again, there's no magic number though, right? That's why I was wondering.
No, there's no like level of TA. Yeah, there's not a threshold or benchmark that's been created.
Well, yeah, so that's what I was asking, is it really illegal just to smoke because you haven't gone past the
Correct. You
limit?
don't know what that
Yeah.
But
person is.
everybody's different too, you know,
Right.
I'm like a lightweight, I can have
Well,
one
yeah,
drink and I'm
yeah.
asleep on the
Right,
table.
right.
With,
Yeah.
I've never even tried it,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I don't know what it would do to me.
So,
I definitely wouldn't be driving.
but yeah, I mean, somebody could just start, doesn't mean they're impaired.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, how long does it take for it to work? And
Yeah.
it's a challenge. It
Mhm.
really is.
Not that you don't have enough challenges, but
Yeah, I mean,
you get another one.
that's the thing. I mean, the officers now and what they're faced with compared to what
Yeah,
I had to do and deal with back when I first started is
Yeah.
30-fold. The challenges that they have now, I didn't have to. I didn't have to deal with. And conversely, though, the chiefs I worked for back then didn't have the challenges that I'm faced with.
yeah.
They didn't have to worry about recruitment. They didn't have to worry about staffing.
Mhm.
They didn't have to worry about retention. Because when I took the test
Like
for
hundreds
three,
of people.
right, when I took
applying.
the test for three
Yeah, I know.
positions, there were 600 people, 500 people taking the test.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't have to worry about, so it's,
And it wasn't that long ago. I mean, like I have a girl who I coached in high school in soccer, and she was looking to be a police officer, and she applied in Hartford, and like she had the good background and everything, and there was hundreds and hundreds of people applying,
Yeah.
and that wasn't, I'll say 15 years ago. It wasn't even that, probably 10 years ago, and she's like,
Yeah.
now it's like.
Yeah.
If she signed up, they take her in a heartbeat. She's a nurse
Yeah.
now, so she'll never do it. But
Yeah.
it was just a totally different
Yeah.
thing. She's like, "Oh, I don't
Yeah.
stand a chance." She goes, "There's like 300 people who applied,
Right.
and she said there's like
Yeah.
50 women." She goes, "I'm not going to get it."
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's the job has been good to me. I mean, I've never lost sight of that. Everything I have, personally
We
with my
appreciate you.
family
Yeah.
is because of the profession and
Yeah.
more so the town.
Mhm.
So it's a good job, but it's not for everybody. And you want to find the right person that's going to fit in to the community and to the other
I
members of the
think we need
department.
to keep our standards high.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, we've always said that.
It's funny. I just sent something out to the supervisors the other day. I found a good article about maintaining your standards, and it was spot on. So I sent it to the command staff and to the sergeants and say, hey, this is why we're not gonna cut our standards. It's important. So, good point. So, Derek, anybody?
We have a Nancy Baxter as an attendee, but it looks like she does not have any questions at the moment.
Okay, yeah, she's one of the members. You guys got any questions?
Nope, you answered all my
I have
questions.
one.
Sure.
I didn't get to read the article, but they were talking about vandalism at the park.
Yeah, that wasn't put out by us.
Hey, it was in the Herald, so I didn't
Yeah.
even get to see what that was about.
It's just
Anything?
about it's just the Park and Rec put out a press release about all the vandalism that they're experiencing, the graffiti,
It's all graffiti. Is that what it is?
it's graffiti, things being broken.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, the cost associated with that.
Hmm.
So they put something out, has a
I saw it
reminder
literally just before I came here, and I
for
didn't get a
people
chance
that
to
are
read it.
out in the parks. If they see anything, be vigilant, call the police department. Because obviously when things like that get vandalized, they have to get repaired or
Repaired.
fixed, and that costs money. They're spending a lot of money, because people don't respect others' property, more so, don't respect the town's property. And, you know, when they break things like that and do things, it's all, it's our tax money that's gotta fix it. So they put that out just as an alert for, you know, the public to be a little bit more vigilant when they're out in the parks, so. Okay,
I don't know anything else.
right,
No,
we're good.
We're good.
All right, thanks.
Great.
thank you.